Hello YouTube, it's Lion here with Hobbies of Man once again, and today we are doing another manga video. Now today's manga video is going to be about the 10 best manga series that I started or read in 2020. Now I'm going to try to stay away from the big three and classic manga like Dragon Ball, just because it's boring to add those to the list. So no worries, everything is going to be pretty different from what most people would pick, I would assume. Maybe not exactly. I think there'll be some overlap compared to other people, but I did try to make this as unique as possible and honest as possible. I read about 45 different series, and mostly just one volume of each series, but there was quite a few that I read, upwards of 5 volumes for. So I did try to be as fair as possible and kind of compare each series to each other as equally as I could. However, it's not exactly an exact science because, different series move at different paces, different series have different amounts of volumes and such, so it was kind of difficult, but I tried my best to make it, as comparable as possible. Mostly, it's all based on my emotional reaction to the stories anyways, so it's fair in that sense, regardless of whether I read one book or 10 books in the series. It's based on how much it affected me more so than anything else. So I read 45 series and I read over 100 volumes. I'm not exactly sure how many volumes I read because I have sold volumes away and I didn't keep the best track, but I do know that it's between 100 and 120. So there are the stats. Let's get into the actual countdown. So at number 10, I think Blade of the Immortal Volume 1 was probably the 10th most interesting or best manga that I read this year. It was very difficult to read. It was flipped, right? From right to left to right, like everyone else, or whatever the actual thing is. It's flipped so that you read it like a Western comic when it's a Japanese comic, so it's supposed to be the other way around, which makes following the art kind of difficult. I had quite a problem with that, and I had to reread a lot of sections a lot to be able to understand what was going on. So the enjoyment wasn't all that great, but the art was really beautiful, and the story was interesting and engaging to an extent. I'll be honest, it wasn't the most powerful, deep, meaningful plot line ever. It was a very basic revenge story with some very interesting world building and strong characters, and that's really what I was interested in. It's the growth that the characters go through as the story progresses. I only read the first volume, so I assume that there's a lot more growth to be had, but the main character Manji at the beginning of the book and at the end of the book are very different from one another, and I was really interested to see that growth or that change. It also had a very beautiful packaging. The Dark Horse, like the paperback 3-in-1s are very, very nice. I really like them a lot. Now, number 9 on the list is Gantz. Now, I didn't really know anything about Gantz until Prom G started talking about it quite a lot. I mean, he'd been talking about it for a while, but I never really paid attention. I picked up one of the volumes on a whim, and I really enjoyed it. The art is very interesting. It's made in 3D, like using a modeling software, and then it's traced over to create the 2D images. And so sometimes there's a bit of a weirdness to the way that the art looks, but overall I think it's very nicely done. A lot of the times there's a certain realistic weight to the drawings that I really like. And the story moves really fast, or the plot line and the action in the story moves really fast, but the unraveling of the mystery moves really slowly, and I think that combination is very interesting. It's a bit annoying in the sense that I hate that it's not, I don't know what's going on, but it's still intriguing, and the fast-paced action doesn't let you sit down to think about it all that much, so it moves and it keeps moving, and although you know that you want to know what's going on, you can't really stop to think about it because it's moving so fast. And I really like that. It's very interesting as a storytelling gimmick, I guess. But yeah, really enjoyed it. I also don't mind the 3-in-1s. A lot of people complain about them and say that the singles are better, or that they want a deluxe edition like Dark Horse is doing with all of its big flagship titles. I think a deluxe edition would be pretty cool, but I'm not sure that the sizing or the scaling would work properly. I think it would end up being a really fat book, like a really wide one instead of the same size as the other one. So I'm not really sure if that would work. It would kind of warp the art a little bit. Besides that, I don't know. I don't think every series needs a deluxe edition. And I really don't mind the 3-in-1s because they're small, they're stubby, and they're fat, but they're pretty well made, and they don't really damage on the spines unless you really try to pry it open. So it's not really all that bad. Now, number 8. I think All You Need to Kill is a very good series, and it definitely deserves a spot on this list. Now, it has good art because it's Takeshi Obata. Great guy, very good art style. The story is very interesting. There's a small problem with the world building, mostly in the way that, they take down these aliens that they're fighting, because they use an axe, which is probably the least good weapon that they could have chosen when they need blunt, slashing damage. A spear or a sword or a halberd or something with more reach would have been way better than a giant axe. But I understand that it had to do with the coolness factor more than anything else, so I don't really mind all that much. Beyond that, though, the time traveling element is very, very nice. I really enjoy it. I think it's very cool, and it adds a very interesting twist to the story. So it's very cool. I had a very oh crap, that just happened kind of reaction to the story, and I really enjoyed it. I also liked that it's a very nice introductory manga. If you want to get people into manga and want to show them, hey, this is generally what manga is like, this is a very good book to start with. I think that All You Need to Kill is the best introductory manga that you could give to someone to get them into the hobby. So, good stuff there. Now, at number 7, we have KOMI Can't Communicate. I love the cozy vibes of KOMI so much, and the very interesting kind of melancholic, nostalgic feeling that I get from reading it. I get sent back a few years into my high school experience, and I remember all of these great moments that I had with a lot of my friends that I don't really see all that much anymore. And it's very interesting. I really like it, and it's also a very nicely made story. It's very cute. It's not all that plot driven. It's mostly about the character interactions and the cute expressions that they have. But there is something overarching connecting every story, and there is something that develops around volume 10 in terms of storyline that is refreshing, and it allows the story to continue moving forward, which is really good. Because around volume 8, you start to get a little bored of the fact that it's just, okay, here's a different situation, there's another situation, and another situation, and it just kind of feels monotonous to an extent. So the addition of a new plot point in volume 10 of the series is very good. I like that quite a lot. Basically, KOMI is on this list because although the strength of it is, the strength of its plotline isn't that great, the vibes and feelings that it elicits in me are very strong. So I really liked it for that reason. Now, at number 6, we have Drifting Dragons. I had to add a foodie manga to the list because food is one of my favorite things in the world. I love cooking. I really enjoy finding new recipes, and I really enjoy trying them out. It's one of the things that I do with my mom very often to kind of bond with, and with my dad as well when we go outside and either use the grill or smoke ribs or something like that. It's a very kind of family-oriented thing that I enjoy doing, and it has allowed me to have very nice moments with my family members. So I love food and cooking, and Drifting Dragons takes that and adds it to a fantasy setting, and it's so cool. It's basically about these people that hunt dragons for a living, and after they hunt a dragon, usually they have to render it down to all of its components, and there's some meat left over that the characters all enjoy together. They have a very fun time preparing a dish with the meat, And then they have a nice family style meal together, which I think is very nice. It's very cool, cozy vibes. And it's just so awesome that there's something like that in manga. I just think it's so cool to see something that here in the West we find so mundane and maybe not all that important have such an interesting place in entertainment in Japan. So I like it quite a lot. It's also very nicely drawn. I love the art here in Drifting Dragons. It's so good. I've been watching the anime, and although the art isn't necessarily as good as the manga, because it's that weird Netflix CGI stuff, it looks really nice sometimes, and it makes the dragons look so awesome. I really like how the adaptation turned out. Now, number 5, A Man and His Cat. This is one of the first titles by Square Enix that they released, if I remember correctly, and I loved it. It was so impactful. I don't know why, just when I read it, it like hit me really hard in the feels. It was like after a test, and I had decided to sit down and just read something really quick just so I could kind of unwind, because, you know, after an exam, you kind of have that kind of weird adrenaline thing when you're really nervous and you're like jittery after taking an exam, which I don't know if everyone has, but I deal with it after an exam sometimes, and I just feel really like hyped up and I want to do something. And I wanted to read this manga to kind of relax because I thought it was just going to be a fun thing about this old guy and this cat just enjoying life. But it was actually way more than that. It was about this old man dealing with loneliness and a little cat dealing with loneliness that drove that loneliness away and had brought light back into their hearts by becoming a family. I thought that was really amazing. I loved it. I loved that there was, we could see it from the cat's perspective and from the man's perspective. And I thought that was really interesting. I just loved how it like made me feel. I started to tear up. I never tear up reading or watching anything. And this manga just made me like not bawl out my eyes or anything, but you know that little tingling feeling that you get in your nose and like the kind of sharp wetness that you start to feel when you want to cry? I started feeling that with this manga, and it was so crazy to me. It was so surreal that such a simple concept and such a, you know, childish thing as manga elicited so much emotional like response from me. So I really put this up high on my list just because it was so meaningful and so impactful to me. The art is really cute as well, so it's very nice. If you guys like cats and like kind of dealing with your own loneliness, that's a pretty good manga to read for that. Now, number 4. This is a manga that I read digitally that's ongoing, and it's Mashle. Now, I think it's hilarious. The art isn't my favorite. I'm going to be honest. It's very similar to Mob Psycho in the way that like the art is pretty garbage compared to the story and the quality of the story. But it kind of adds an element of comedy to the series that the art is so bad. So it's very interesting. It's basically a Harry Potter style world, you know, wizards and witches and everyone knows. And there's really crazy shit that happens because of this magic. Basically, people without magic are at best enslaved, at worst killed all the time. And it's very crazy. And the amount of facial marks that you have dictates how much magical power, and your whole worth as a person is based on how much magic you have and how well you can use it. And it's so amazing because the main character, 1, doesn't have magic, 2, is breaking the law just by existing, and 3, able to beat people with huge, tremendous amounts of magic just off the sheer hard work that he did perfecting his body and kind of doing exercise and stuff. I think it's very ridiculous, and although the messaging is very inspiring, it's not necessarily honest or true to how reality works, but it's just so damn fun and so cool and interesting, and it's a very kind of like escapist thing that is supposed to teach you a lesson, and I really love how it all works. It's very ridiculous, and I love it so much. Yeah, the art is very meh. It's like bad. It's not very good. But it slowly starts to grow on you as you start to like enjoy it. Plus, there are some times where the art just goes like crazy and it looks so awesome. But, you know, that's kind of balanced out by the fact that usually it looks pretty bad. So, you know, take that with a bit of grain of salt there. Now, on to number 3, Black Clover. This is another one that I read digitally when I bought the Shonen Jump app. It's freaking awesome. I love Black Clover so much. It's so cool. It's basically the same idea as Mashle. It's a world where magic and how much magic you have dictates your position in society. However, if you don't have magic, you don't get killed. You're just basically kind of like tossed to the side. And our main character, Asta, has this same problem. He doesn't have any magic, but he has worked so hard to like perfect his body and kind of be strong without the need of magic that he can battle magical beings. He also has this like Naruto-esque like, oh, hard work and determination is going to fix you, but you also are special, so you have the crazy ability that no one else has, right? Which kind of defeats the purpose of the message, but still enhances the message to an extent, and I quite like it. It's very much like if Naruto and Fairy Tail had a baby, and Naruto and Fairy Tail are two of my favorite series, so Black Clover is naturally a series that I love a lot. I do want to collect it a lot. I want to pick up all the volumes, but I did make a promise to myself that at least for the first 6 months of this year, I would not buy any Viz manga because I want to focus on collecting from other publishers. If you guys want to see my collecting goals, it's up there. And if you want to see my top light novels, it's up there as well. But yeah, back to this. So Black Clover is amazing. I love how hardworking Asta is and how he just does not give up. And even though he has that like special anti-magic thing going on, he still really just beats people because of the sheer tenacity of his character. I love it so much. I also like that there's a Sasuke-esque character, but he's not like a sad emo kid. He's very much like an honest and true rival to Asta. His name is Yuno. And I love their relationship because they're basically brothers. And they know that they both want to strive for the same thing, but they don't have any hate for each other. It's all about support and friendly competition between them. And I love that so much. I also love this epic or / Western fantasy feel to the story with the magic knights and the Western style swords and the armor. And it's so cool. I love the aesthetic. The art is very nice. It's a little like too sharp in some ways. They're very like angular, but it grows on you a bit. And there are some times where that angularness actually comes into play very nicely to make the art look awesome. So it's very interesting. I really like it a lot. Now, number 2 on the list is Monster by Naoki Urasawa. This is the only manga on this list by like a very well-known or very epic mangaka. I guess Blade of the Immortal is too, but I don't think that the mangaka of Blade of the Immortal really did anything else besides that. So this one is on a class of its own. Now, Monster is on this list, and it's number 2 because it just showed me how amazing manga is. Like, the story that Monster is telling is like some of the best thriller, detective, like slasher like stories that I've ever experienced, and it's in manga format. That's so cool. I think the way that Naoki Urasawa tells his stories and how he allows his characters to unravel this story for the reader is very interesting. I really like it. His art is very cool as well. It's not really realistic. It feels cartoony, kind of like old Saturday morning or Sunday morning cartoons that you would read on the newspaper. Probably younger people don't really know what those look like anymore, but it has a kind of cartoonish feel, but the characters feel realistic and they feel like real people, and it's very interesting how that works. And I just love how there's this deep-seated mystery and this like very interesting way to force that mystery out that Naoki Urasawa does. And I don't know, it blew my mind when I read it. I was so like blown away by how deep and interesting the story of Monster was. And I only read the first volume, so I can't wait to read more. So we'll see how it goes from there. So that was number 2. Now, Number one on the list is probably going to get me some hate because it's nothing compared to Monster, but Eden Zero by Hiro Mashima was probably the best thing I read in 2020. Like, holy crap, man. I love Hiro Mashima so much. His work with Fairy Tail was amazing. Yes, there was many problems with Fairy Tail, and I feel like I say this every time, but Fairy Tail was the epitome of friends going on adventures together and not caring about the repercussions or the sense of responsibility that they had to have. Fairy Tail is also about friendship and about caring about the people that you are with and developing your own family outside of the bounds of traditional family units and about finding where you belong. And I love that so much. Eden Zero does the same thing. It's about finding where you belong. It's about making your own family. It's about going on adventures with your friends. But there's an overarching plot line here that is very interesting. It's about finding this epic being that exists in the universe called Mother, that is this giant woman that floats around in space. That's so cool. Hiro Mashima, his art has evolved so much from Fairy Tail and from Brave Master. It's so much more rounded now. The characters look a lot curvier, or at least the female characters. The male characters look pretty much the same, just not with that weird stretched out design that they had, where they kind of look like characters from One Piece. They don't have that anymore. It's all more proportional, but the female characters look way better. They're a lot more curvy and a lot softer looking because like Lucy and Urza in the early Fairy Tail chapters looked kind of like, not angular, but really like, I don't know, like too skinny in the middle. That's not the case anymore. And his character designs are the same as they were in Fairy Tail and the same as they were in Rave Master. But this is actually a technique that Osamu Tezuka used. And that's what it's called. It's like the Osamu Tezuka star technique or something like that. Where it's like you have the same characters or character designs and you just change it up or add new personalities to them. And you use them for a new story. Clamp does it. Takeshi Obata does it. Hiro Mashima does it. Saint Seiya's creator, Masami Kurumada did it as well. So this isn't new. And I don't understand why people get mad at Hiro Mashima for doing it. Because it's a thing that traditional mangaka have been doing for years. But yeah, the character designs are basically the same. Except for what they're wearing and how they act. Shiki is more or less the same as Natsu. But Rebecca is very different from Lucy. And I love that so much. I love how similar they are, but how different they are. Because it allows you to latch onto the characters and feel something for them right from the get-go. But then that develops into this new feeling for the characters based on the new experiences that you have with them. And I love it so much. It's really cool. Just the world building that Mashima put into this, where every adventure and every arc is in a new world with very different things. Like the first arc happens in a world full of androids. The second arc happens in a metropolitan style world where rivers float around the sky. In the third arc, we go into a desert-like planet where pillars of crystals fall from the sky as rain. We go to a place where time stops. We go to a place where entities live in a digital world. There's so much stuff here in Eden Zero that just really blows my mind, and I love it so much. There's some amazing scenes as well. Like, I can't remember what volume it is. I think it was volume 5. No, it was volume 4. Sorry. There's this time where they're going through space and they go across this place called Iron Hill, which is this like circle with 12 giant statues of great knights from the past that looks so awesome. Like, look, Eden Zero was just the best manga that I read this past year, and I love it so much. I think everyone should check it out. Give it a chance, even if you didn't like Fairy Tail. This is everything Fairy Tail had, plus a very, properly outlined storyline, which is wonderful. But yeah, that's basically it for me. Those were my top 10 manga that I read this past year. I know maybe some people would have put some of the ones that I put lower down higher up on my list, But to me, it's all about the emotional response that the art creates. And I do like looking at art objectively, and for the most part, I think that's the right way to look at it for reviews and such. But just on what I liked, I think this list is as honest as I can make it. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you did, please like, subscribe, and comment down below. Let me know what you guys read the past year and what your favorite manga or light novels were from 2020. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I hope you guys liked it. See you guys in the next video. Bye-bye for now.